Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the 2018 NFL Draft Class, specifically a first-round mock draft. That's right. This is the first mock draft that I'm going to be doing on this channel, and this is going to be entirely a mock draft dedicated to how I feel the first round should go. Now, there's going to be a mix of different things. This is going to be a mixture of data, a mixture of film, a mixture of just how I feel things should go when it comes to the draft. So this is just going to be a mock draft where I kind of go through each team and I give you my thoughts and opinions as to why I think they should go with these players. This is going to be a relatively longer video, so get your popcorn ready, I suppose. But I'm going to try to make it as entertaining as possible as I get through it. But yeah, so we're going to do a mock draft, people. Again, first mock draft for this channel, and just giving you an idea of how I feel the first round should go, or at the very least, how I feel teams should draft players in this draft based on rankings. There are no trades. So I'm not doing any fancy things like, oh, so-and-so team trades up or anything else like that. It's purely just the way it is. So, you know, it's just however the teams are ranked thus far is how they're going to go. And with that out of the way, let's get to the first pick of the draft. The Cleveland Browns are selecting number 1 overall. And the only player that I see them taking, just based on my own rankings, based on the data, and based on everything else, is, of course, Baker Mayfield. Mayfield, by far, when you look at his FBS production data from college to high school, hits every single number you're looking for when it comes to long-term starter to Pro Bowl potential. When you look at his career production data, he pretty much hits the All-Pro career threshold, and on top of that is above what the All-Pro career averages are for the position. On top of that, when you look at him on film, he's just a fantastic competitor. Extremely accurate, throws one of the most catchable footballs in this particular draft class, and I think he may get overlooked because of height, and obviously may not end up becoming the top quarterback taken in this draft, but I just feel when you look at Baker Mayfield, he's by far the safest quarterback to draft in this draft class with great data all around in his profile. Which brings us to the number 2 overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft Class. The New York Giants select Sam Darnold, a quarterback out of USC. Another guy, great data from high school to college, and in many ways I see him as the guy who has the highest upside in this class. You know, when it comes to quarterbacks in this particular draft class, you know, he's a little bit younger than Baker Mayfield. He pretty much hits the career threshold numbers he needs to hit, and also hits the career average numbers that he needs to hit as well. Darnold is definitely a guy that in his final season at USC had some issues in terms of decision making. You know, his stats did drop a bit compared to what his, redshirt freshman season was, which was fantastic. However, I still think he's a great all-around player. Really uncanny ability to get out of the pocket and make throws on the move. You know, incredibly accurate throws on the run. And I think he's going to be a great fit and is a quarterback that, in many ways, has the upside, the potential to be better than Baker Mayfield long-term. It's just Mayfield is a little bit safer of a pick, just in terms of his overall data coming out. He's a little bit more consistent than Darnold has been in his career. Which brings us to the number 3 pick in the NFL Draft Class. The New York Jets, select Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA. Another guy, great high school production, great college production. When it comes to the career FBS production scores, he pretty much hit above the All-Pro career threshold. When you look at the averages at the position, he looks more like a Pro Bowler than an All-Pro player because he's kind of below what the average All-Pro career production score is for an FBS player. But he's still a really great player. So, Josh Rosen is one of those players in this draft that there's lots to talk about his personality and this and that. But I just think overall, when you look at him, very solid, all-around prospect. And I think that he has a very good shot to become a long-term starter to Pro Bowler when it's all said and done. Then we get to the number 4 pick of the NFL Draft. We get to the Cleveland Browns again, and they select Colton Miller, offensive tackle out of UCLA. You might be going, wow, that is really high, Jim. And believe me, I do understand the sort of thinking that this is a guy that obviously is probably not going to be the first tackle taken. There are definitely some things on film that are concerning, but when you look at him from a data perspective, he's one of the youngest offensive tackles in this draft class. Tremendous height and just overall physical ability. And when you get to his actual athleticism testing, he's by far the most athletic offensive tackle in this draft class, hitting extremely good marks in terms of explosiveness, speed, and flexibility. When you look at the averages at the position, he looks more like a Pro Bowler than an All-Pro player. But in general, you just lost Joe Thomas. I understand that Cleveland Browns fans don't like this because, like, oh, just because we lost a Hall of Famer doesn't mean that you're going to replace him. You're definitely not. But I think when you look at the situation that the Browns have, I do think you need to go out and get an offensive tackle. Mike McGlinchey is not that guy. Colton Miller, in many ways, can become that guy, and that's why I'm picking him number 4 overall in this particular draft class. In many ways, Colton Miller is like a legit Josh Allen type player at the offensive tackle position. So I understand a lot of people don't like Josh Allen, or some people do, but they don't. But, you know, again, Colton Miller is basically like the Josh Allen of offensive tackle prospects, but a Josh Allen that could actually become something interesting because he has all the physical tools and is also young enough that there's a lot of potential that he could develop. And we get to the number 5 overall pick in this draft class. We have Quentin Nelson to the Denver Broncos. Again, great all-around athleticism profile. Hit all the all-pro threshold marks for the most part. And in terms of the averages at the position, looks more like a Pro Bowl guard than an all-pro guard. But bottom line, Quentin Nelson to me is a top prospect in this draft class. I mean, he has tremendous film, hits all the athleticism marks that you're looking for, and there's just not much else I can say. Quentin Nelson is that guy in this class. If there was one player in this class that is going to make it, like if I only had to pick one player to go on and become a successful player at the NFL level, it would be Quentin Nelson. I think he's a good pick for the Broncos, who do need to beef up their offensive line. Then we get to the number 6 pick in this particular draft class with the Indianapolis Colts, who select Harold Landry, edge out of Boston College. Not Bradley Chubb, Harold Landry. Harold Landry is the one who has very good overall production, pretty much hit all the sort of all-pro production thresholds you're looking for, and also Pro Bowl production thresholds that you're looking for. And in terms of athleticism data, tremendous all-around athlete, looks the part in terms of every single thing. And in many ways, Harold Landry most likely would just be a Pro Bowl player versus an all-pro player, but none of the edge rushers in this draft class look like all-pro players. So I'm going with the guy that is most likely to succeed as an edge rusher in this draft class, and that is Harold Landry, and that is exactly what the Colts need to select in this draft class to kind of beef up their ability to kind of, you know, rush the passer. Then we get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who select Josh Sweat, edge rusher out of Florida State. The first pick that is a little bit of a projection with him. You know, Josh Sweat is definitely someone who his best football is definitely not here yet. But when you look at his production data, he pretty much hits all the production points that you want a player to hit in terms of Pro Bowl potential. And on top of that, when you look at his athleticism testing, he's by far one of the best testing athletes in this draft class when it comes to edge rushers. I think when you look at Josh Sweat, you're looking at a guy that is definitely a little bit more potential than finished product per se. But I do think that when you look at all the overall indicators, when you look at his age, you look at his production, you look at his athleticism data, he has a very good shot of being the best edge rusher from this draft class. And I think when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they need edge rushers desperately. And I think that Josh Sweat is someone that can give them the most bang for their buck, so to speak, if you're picking a player this high in terms of filling that need of a pass rusher. We get to the Chicago Bears, picking at number 8. The Chicago Bears select DJ Moore, wide receiver out of Maryland. When you look at his production data, 99.27 in terms of his overall passing yardage market share production. You look at the averages at the position, pretty much hits all the All-Pro, Pro Bowl and starter averages at the position, and is a tremendous all-around athlete. I think when you look at DJ Moore, he is a guy in this class that has some doubters with him, a lot like Juju Smith-Schuster. And Juju Smith-Schuster was a guy that last year, very similar to DJ Moore, put up the very same type of production numbers in terms of market share data with similar athleticism marks, except DJ Moore is more athletic, and of course Juju Smith-Schuster ended up becoming a sensation as a rookie, and I think DJ Moore has a very good shot at being that as well. I think the Chicago Bears need more playmakers in terms of wide receivers, and I think DJ Moore definitely fits that bill here. Again, as someone who really is a very rare wide receiver prospect when it comes to just the overall indicators or traits on paper. And then we get to number 9 on this list, the San Francisco 49ers, who select Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. When you look at his production data, 99.15 in terms of solo tackle market share, which is tremendous. You look at his athleticism marks. The only area that Roquan Smith gets into a little bit of trouble is his explosive lower body strength score. Since 1999, 83.15 has been the bottom end threshold for linebackers that are all-pro potential types, and 65 is for Pro Bowl type. So Roquan does definitely have some question marks in terms of his explosive lower body strength score, just his lower body explosiveness. And I'm overlooking that to a certain extent because he has such a strong profile in terms of speed, a strong profile in terms of his production data, that I am kind of overlooking that lack of explosiveness to a certain extent. But I still think he's going to be a good pick here. I think when you look at the 49ers, they're going to probably going to lose Reuben Foster due to his off-the-field issues. And because of that, I think you need to get a guy in there to kind of shore up that linebacker group. And I think Roquan Smith fits the bill to help that issue. And we get to the Oakland Raiders who pick Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker out of Virginia Tech. Great all-around production. 93.57 in terms of solo tackle production data. On top of that, he puts up pretty good athleticism marks, 78.32 in terms of explosiveness, and 95.43 in terms of speed for his size. Edmonds is just a do-it-all type linebacker, has the athleticism to rush the passer, to drop in the slot. Like, he can do everything in terms of just his overall athleticism gifts. And I think when you look at the Raiders, they're a team that hasn't had a very strong linebacker in a very, very long time. I think the best linebacker they've had in terms of like the last decade or so is like Thomas Howard, maybe, Kirk Morrison, right? So it's been a while since the Raiders have actually had a really solid, viable linebacker prospect, and I think Edmonds kind of fills that need exceptionally well. Then we get to the Miami Dolphins, who select James Daniels, offensive center out of Iowa. Great all-around athleticism profile. Hits every single number you're looking for in terms of Pro Bowl potential at the center position. Great also when you look at the overall averages at the position. The bottom line is I know Dolphin fans may not like this pick, but I just really like it. I think James Daniels is a phenomenal player on film. Great all-around athleticism profile, and I think he is going to be a fantastic selection for them in the future. They lost Pouncey due to kind of a trade, and I think that Daniels kind of helps to kind of fix that issue. Then of course you get to the Buffalo Bills at 12, who select Will Hernandez, offensive guard out of UTEP. Again, not the sexiest pick, but just a great all-around player. Tremendous athleticism traits in terms of just explosiveness, speed, and flexibility. Looks like a Pro Bowl to fringe all-pro potential guard. And I just think when you think about toughness and intensity and just physicality, he's right up there with Quentin Nelson in this class in terms of interior offensive lineman. And I think you don't look at need as much as just looking for the best player sometimes. And I think this is one of those cases. But Will Hernandez is just such a great player. He's in a strong guard class, and I don't think you ignore taking a strong guard just because it's a strong class. I think you take players from parts of the class that are strong to actually get good players, and I think Will Hernandez fits that role very well. Then, of course, you get to the Washington Redskins selection, who select Cortland Sutton, wide receiver at SMU. Very good production profile for the most part in terms of hitting all the all-pro potential marks, Pro Bowl potential marks, and long-term starting marks in terms of bottom-end thresholds. Looks more like a Pro Bowl player than an all-pro player when you look at the averages at the position, but still very strong overall profile. Great athleticism profile as well. I've done videos on the past showing the similarities between him and Alshon Jeffrey, and though Sutton may not go this high in the actual draft, I still think Sutton will go on to become one of the better wide receivers from this draft class when it's all said and done. Then we get to the Green Bay Packers, who select Brian O'Neill, offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. Another player that a lot of people are like, what, Brian O'Neill this high? But again, I think the Packers have tackle issues. I think Brian O'Neill, based on his overall data, looks like a Pro Bowl offensive tackle. I think he would fit really well with the Packers' overall system and what they try to do. And I just think that Brian O'Neill may go on, even though he may end up being a day 2 pick, I think he will go on to become at least one of the better offensive tackles from this draft class. And the Packers just really need offensive line help. I think, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he's not been spoiled, to say the least, when it comes to offensive tackle play. And I think that O'Neill can kind of help fix that a bit if you draft him and kind of go from there with him. Of course, you get to the Arizona Cardinals at number 15, who select Marcus Davenport, edge from UTSA. When you look at his overall production profile, fantastic. You look at his athleticism profile, very good all around in terms of explosiveness, speed, and flexibility. In many ways, I think this is a really great compliment to Chandler Jones. And I think Davenport, in many ways, reminds me of Chandler Jones, just in the fact that Chandler Jones was a guy that a lot of people were very cool on. They didn't like him that much, and then he actually ended up being a good player, and then people kind of turned their mind around him. That's what I see in Davenport. I think Davenport is a guy that there are going to be a lot of people who don't like him, think he's drafted way too high, even on this list. But I still think that when it comes to his actual NFL transition, he will be really good. He will be a Chandler Jones or better like prospect at the next level. So I think this is a good pick for Arizona, just to kind of build up on that defense. And yeah, quarterback is definitely a concern, but I just think that taking the kind of better player here is what they should do when it comes to the overall draft. Now, of course, we get to number 16. Baltimore Ravens select Mike Gesicki, tight end out of Penn State. Strong production profile in terms of hitting the all-pro thresholds. In between a Pro Bowler to starter in terms of his overall profile, but really great athleticism traits. This is kind of a very weak tight end class when it comes to overall projection. Lots of tight ends that are either really old, unproductive, or not athletic at all. And I think Gesicki kind of fits the mold as being young, productive, and athletic. I think he will go on to become at least a Pro Bowl tight end at the next level. And I think for the Baltimore Ravens, who've had a lot of issues getting a tight end in there, I think the best tight end the Ravens have had in a while has been like Todd Heap, or Dennis Pitta. So it's been a while since they've gotten a very good overall tight end, and I think Gesicki will help that out tremendously if they pick him. Now, of course, we get to Los Angeles Chargers, who select Jari Alexander, cornerback out of Louisville. Pretty decent Pro Bowl level production traits. We look at his solo tackle data and his pass deflection data. And then when you look at his athleticism data, strong overall athlete. There are some question marks in terms of just whether or not he reaches Pro Bowl potential or not. This is not the strongest cornerback class in terms of high quality outcomes. None of the cornerbacks in this class really look like slam dunk Hall of Famers, if you will, is all I'm trying to say. But I still think Jari Alexander has a strong profile in terms of production, strong profile in terms of his athleticism, and I think that will kind of carry him over to make the Chargers one of the better secondary groups, kind of build on that defense in many ways for the future. Then, of course, you get to the Seattle Seahawks, who select Taven Bryan, defensive tackle out of Florida. Pretty decent production profile. Not amazing, but decent. Kind of hits kind of where he needs to hit. In terms of the averages at the position, does have some question marks in terms of TFO, but the real reason why you're drafting him is because of his athleticism and just his general around decent production, but not great production. I think Taven Bryan has a lot of potential to be a good but not great defensive tackle at the next level, but in a class that doesn't have that many great defensive tackles, I think he fits right in. And I think when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, who might be wanting to get a little bit more interior pressure, I think that's exactly what Taven Bryan can potentially bring to you, for the Seattle Seahawks. So I think it's a strong pick for them, who might want to beef up the interior defensive line. You go to the Dallas Cowboys pick, who select Bradley Chubb, edge rusher out of North Carolina State. The hype has been a little too crazy for Bradley Chubb. It's strong overall production profile, though. I mean, when you look at his production profile, very strong. You look at his athleticism profile, that's where he runs into some issues. You know, when it comes to his three-cone and some other sort of question marks, he looks more like a Pro Bowl edge rusher than an All-Pro edge rusher. Not Khalil Mack, not Von Miller. I know Von Miller said that he's like Khalil Mack and Von Miller combined, but that's not what he is from an athleticism standpoint. He's a guy who more likely is going to disappoint than to, you know, give you what you think he's going to be. I still think he's going to be a solid all-around player. I just think that when it comes to guys like Landry and it comes to guys like Sweat, they just have a little bit extra oomph to them to kind of potentially be better than Bradley Chubb in the long run. Then, of course, you get to the Detroit Lions selection, who select Justin Reed, defensive safety out of Stanford. Pretty solid production profile from solo tackle, interception, and pass deflection. Doesn't quite fit in the box, so to speak, in terms of being a Pro Bowler per se or an All-Pro player per se, but definitely a long-term starter and great all-around athleticism profile. I think Justin Reed is a guy that is one of the better testing safeties in this class when it comes to just his flexibility and speed for his size. And I think a lot of that stuff will help him out. But a lot like Eric Reed, I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's going to be great. So I think when you look at Justin Reed, you're looking at a guy that has potential to be a starting free safety for you. He's not going to be a top 10 overall safety, but he is going to be someone who's going to be able to contribute and at least be solid for you in the long run. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals, who select Frank Ragnow, offensive center out of Arkansas. Great all-around athleticism profile with the exception of flexibility. You know, elite explosiveness, elite speed for his size. And all I have to tell you is go to the Alabama tape. He lit up Daron Payne like no business, and a lot of that is because of his athleticism traits. He's explosive, he's fast, and I think if you're a team that needs to get more intensity, more physicality in terms of your offensive line, I think Frank Ragnow brings that to the table, and that's why I think he's a solid pick here. Then we get to the Buffalo Bills, who select Mason Rudolph, quarterback out of Oklahoma State. Again, strong all around, high school production and FBS production scores. Comes to the averages at the position, at least hits the bottom end threshold for all-pro potential in terms of the averages. And when you look at in terms of the bottom end thresholds, excuse me, and then when you look at the averages at the position, very solid, you know, kind of, you know, in between an all-pro and Pro Bowl player, more so a Pro Bowl player, but still very strong overall profile. Mason Rudolph gets a lot of hate in this draft class, and I don't really know why. He's someone that shows all the necessary traits that you're looking for in terms of a starting quarterback in this draft class. He's a lot better than Nathan Peterman, and I think when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you have to get a quarterback that can at least be a starter for you to above average potential. And I think that's the thing about Mason Rudolph, is he has above average potential. And I think that's why you might make a move for Mason Rudolph here. Another guy that may end up going day 2, early day 2, but still strong overall profile to say that he could become a long-term starter at the NFL level. Then we get to the New England Patriots, who select Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State. I know a lot of you guys are like, Saquon Barkley going this low? Yeah, right, Jim. And you know what? That's true. I can definitely see the appeal for Saquon Barkley on film. You know, when you look at just his explosiveness, his speed, he's a tremendous athlete. But when you look at his production data, he looks more like a Pro Bowler than an All-Pro player. You know, the bottom end threshold for multiple All-Pro running backs since the 1969 NFL draft class is 89 or higher. And again, 89 or higher, that's where all the greats are. That's where O.J. Simpson is. That's where Marcus Allen is. That's where Emmitt Smith is. That's where Walter Payton is. All the great running backs in that time span, Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson, LT, are in that 89 or higher range. And Barkley is not in that area. He's more in the 5-time Pro Bowler range. He's like in the Clinton Portis he's in that sort of, you know, really good but not great running back range. And I think that's what I ultimately see him as. When you look at his film, you look at some of the question marks he put up last year in particular, I just kind of see him in that area. So I think he has a strong production profile. I think his athleticism is tremendous. He's definitely a generational running back from an athleticism standpoint, but I just don't buy the generational talent talk that he's been getting recently. I think that's just a little too rich for my blood. And I think he'd be a good pick for the Patriots, who haven't had a running back like this in a long, long time. I mean, Curtis Martin might be the closest thing to the type of running back talent that Saquon Barkley is. Then, of course, we get to the Carolina Panthers, who select Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State. Pretty strong production profile with the exception of solo tackle data, and great all-around athlete. This doesn't quite fit with the personality of the Panthers because they seem to be a team that wants to get corners that have length, but I still think that this would be a good, strong overall plan for them. Like, again, Denzel Ward is a very good cornerback prospect. I like him on film. I think there are some question marks with him overall, but I do think that he would be a great all-around addition for any team. And if he becomes Asante Samuel, which could be what he becomes, I think he becomes like a souped-up Asante Samuel, I think that'll be a great selection for the Panthers to beef up their secondary. Of course, we get to the Tennessee Titans, who select Leighton Vander Esch, linebacker out of Boise State. Great production profile, although it was 1 year, and great athleticism profile overall. The one thing about Leighton Vander Esch is that his athleticism profile and his production profile say that he is the guy that has the most upside in this particular draft class. That's why you see Leighton being mocked higher, like in the top 15, top 10, etc., and why he even gets compared to Luke Kuechly, because he's almost identical to Luke Kuechly from an athleticism standpoint. But I still think that because he was kind of a one-year wonder, because he's not as good as Roquan Smith and even Edmonds to a certain extent in terms of just age and all these other sort of factors, I think he's going to be a good player at the next level. I think he has a good chance to be a Pro Bowler, but I'm just not buying the all-pro potentialness with him. And then, of course, we get to the Atlanta Falcons, who select Derwin James, defensive safety out of Florida State. Another guy that you're going to be like, what? Derwin James isn't going to last this long? And again, he may not last this long. It's very possible that he's going to go a lot higher than this. But he's not Earl Thomas. He's not Eric Berry. When you look at his production profile, he looks more like a Pro Bowl strong safety than a All-Pro strong safety. And when you look at his athleticism traits, he doesn't even look like a Pro Bowl safety because of his athleticism traits. So I still like Derwin James. I think he's going to go on to become a very good long-term starting safety at the next level. Kind of Laron Landry-ish, to be honest, before Laron Landry kind of went crazy with the juice. But I still think he's going to be a good player, but I just don't see the top 15 talk that he's been getting. I see him more in this range in my overall rankings and my overall feelings about him after the testing. Then, of course, we get to the New Orleans Saints, who select Joshua Jackson, cornerback out of Iowa. Very strong overall production profile. Has some athleticism questions in terms of speed for his size, but still very strong explosiveness, very strong flexibility. Has a very good shot to be the top corner from this draft class, guys. Like, I do understand a lot of people are on the Jari Alexander and Denzel Ward train because of their athleticism testing. And again, to a certain extent, I do kind of agree that those guys have the better sort of potential. But if you're talking about the guy that, as a finished product, is better than those guys right now, it's Joshua Jackson. He's the guy that's the most polished. He's the guy that's most ready to be an NFL cornerback and perform. And I think that's the one thing about Joshua Jackson. He may go on to have the best season amongst all these cornerbacks in year one because of just his overall development. And he has the athleticism traits necessary to be a very good zone corner at the next level. And the Saints definitely need that. Then, of course, we get to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who select Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. Strong production profile, pretty strong athleticism profile as well. Ogbonnia is a guy that I know the Pittsburgh Steelers fans are going to say, but what about Bud Dupree? And, I do like Bud Dupree, but I think you need to find somebody who's better than Bud Dupree. Somebody who has better upside, somebody who's going to go on to become a better pass rusher all around and complement things a bit. And I think that's Ogbonnia. And I think if you're going to take a cue from the Philadelphia Eagles, who did the rotational pass rusher kind of thing, where they, kind of rotated their pass rushers in and out, this makes total sense from that perspective as well. So I think adding more pass rushers, adding more guys that can get after the quarterback at a high level like Ogbonnia is only going to help the Steelers to improve their defense even more, considering that they did really well in terms of getting sacks last year. And I think building on that success even more so is the best way to kind of get better overall as a team. Then, of course, you get to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who select Maurice Hurst, interior defensive line from Michigan. A pretty good production profile. Looks more like a Pro Bowler than an All-Pro player when you look at his overall production profile. and has some question marks in terms of sack percentage. You know, that's the only big thing about him is his sack market share is not the best compared to previous All-Pro and Pro Bowl players when you look at the averages. And his athleticism testing also has a couple question marks. You know, has good explosiveness but doesn't have elite explosiveness, has good flexibility. His speed score is very good as well, but he's not a perfect all-around prospect per se. And you add on that the heart condition, which is concerning to a certain extent. But I still think Maurice Hurst should be considered in the top 1 to 2 defensive tackles in this draft class. The only reason why I put Taven Bryan over Maurice Hurst was because of the heart condition and because of some of the question marks here and there. But I still think Maurice Hurst has the potential to be the best defensive tackle from this draft class. As far as being Geno Atkins or being Aaron Donald, I really doubt that with Hurst. I think he's going to be a good player, but not a great player like those players. But still, strong overall profile. Then we get to the Minnesota Vikings, who select Harrison Phillips from Stanford. Great all-around production profile when it comes to nose tackles, and great all-around athleticism profile with the exception of speed. I think, you know, this is kind of not really a luxury pick, but this is something where I think, you know, the Vikings may not go in this direction. They may go in a different direction, but I still think building on a strength of theirs, which was stopping the run last year, I think Harrison Phillips will do that tremendously, but he's a guy who actually knows how to rush the passer as well. So don't let his lack of speed fool you. He's explosive, he's flexible, he can rush the passer with the best of them, especially when it comes to bull rushing and kind of getting disruption in the middle, and kind of helping the guys on the edges to get that extra bit of room, if you will, to kind of get inside and make moves inside, not have to worry about guards kind of getting to them or chipping to them. So I think that's kind of where Harrison Phillips does his best stuff. I think that would be a great, tremendous addition to the Vikings defense if they were to get him. Then, of course, we get to the New England Patriots again, who select Michael Gallup, wide receiver out of Colorado State. Strong production profile overall, as I've been in previous videos. Decent athleticism profile as well. Basically profiles as a Pro Bowl wide receiver in terms of his overall data. When you look at his age, his production, his athleticism traits, and all the other sort of factors, he looks like a Pro Bowl wide receiver. I know that he's from Colorado State. I know there's a lot of people that are going to go, what, Colorado State? But I do think that out of all the wide receivers in this draft class, he's the one that has some of the more potential to become a high-quality wide receiver at the next level. And when you look at the Patriots, they're a team that hasn't been the best at drafting wide receivers, but I think drafting Michael Gallup will definitely help that issue. And then finally, we get to the last pick of the draft. The Philadelphia Eagles select Minkah Fitzpatrick, cornerback out of Alabama. And I know a lot of you guys are going to go, why did Minkah Fitzpatrick last this long? He's a top 50 pick. Main reason why is because there's just a lack of testing with him. There's a lack of data. When you look at him as a free safety, he doesn't look like a all-pro free safety, a Pro Bowl free safety. When you look at his overall data, when you look at him as a cornerback, he profiles better as a Pro Bowl cornerback, but there's still questions in terms of flexibility testing because he didn't do any agility testing at any point during the process, which is very concerning. I mean, what is a 3-cone? What is a short shuttle? Those are very important marks to look for, and he didn't do any of those. So it makes me wonder, what are you trying to hide? Overall, I do like Minkah. I think there is Pro Bowl potential with him, and that is why I think he's well worth it here. I do think there's a lot of question marks in terms of what you do with him, but I think when you look at the Eagles, a team that has kind of an interesting kind of mishmash of different types of secondary types, I think he would fit right in with that type of system. So that's kind of why I like him here more than any other place. I still think he's a good player, but I'm just not buying the eliteness of him. I think he's more so a guy that should go late first than someone that should go in the top 10 to top 15 picks. And that concludes the first round mock in terms of the first round in terms of how I think things should go. Again, I know there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with a lot of the picks in this mock, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And if you disagree, leave a comment below. This is my personal opinion. I am unique. I am not a sheep person. I don't read other people's mock drafts and then kind of line mine up to theirs, which is what most people do. I kind of look at all the information and make my own decisions about it. So I do understand there's going to be some picks here and there that some people disagree with, and that's perfectly fine. Please be respectful, though, and just realize that, again, I am my own person. I am a unique individual. If you haven't found that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. But this is my mock draft. This is the only mock draft I'm going to be doing for this draft cycle. And again, and of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Gymmetrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so that you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.